Merrill Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
Just the thing that we needed to do this morning is head on up to the Dubbo area and say good morning to Mayor Matthew Dickerson. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Gary. Thanks for chatting to me.
Not a problem at all. Now, we are speaking of those wonderful things called toilets this morning.
There's been so much interest in our toilet block, Gary. It's the first piece of council infrastructure in the entire nation that's been 3D printed. So we're really leading the way there. But it's been quite mesmerising, quite hypnotic. Just like a 3D printer that sits on your desk and you might print out a small piece of Lego or some piece of plastic, it's the same concept, but you just scale it up to be able to print a piece of infrastructure, put concrete instead of plastic, or it's a special concrete, a special mixture they use, and then you sit back and it does the same thing as a 3D printer. So it has been quite fascinating.
Oh, absolutely. All right. So at what stage are we at the moment?
It's finished. They set up a week ago. They set up last weekend, came along, set up a gantry, set up all the equipment they needed to make it work. Then come Monday, had everything ready to go. They pressed the print button and it printed away, did its job. We had spectators lined up. I can't believe how many spectators kept coming along, coming back again and again, watching where it was up to each day. And then end of the week, they basically packed up their gantry and they went home. The toilet block has been finished. Now there's still the internal fit out to go, but effectively the toilet block has all been done.
It's amazing stuff, isn't it? Is it cost effective to do it like that? Or?
By comparison, we're pretty impressed with the cost of it. Part of the reason for this trial was to see exactly how much it would cost and exactly the costing around it. But we looked at another couple of toilet blocks that we've built recently, and over the last 5 years we've done 2 new toilet blocks. One of them we spent $495,000 on. The other one we spent $310,000 on. Now this toilet block we put out a tender and we're spending $316,000 on it. So it sounds slightly dearer than the $310,000, but a couple of things to keep in mind. Building prices are going up and going up and going up. They're getting quite ridiculous in terms of how much of an increase we're seeing in building prices. So that $310,000 was a few years ago. $316,000 is not much of an increase, but the number of cubicles we're getting for our $316,000 is more than the number of cubicles we got for our $310,000. So a small increase in price, given a large increase in other building prices, and more cubicles. So at this stage, we're pretty impressed with how it's gone from a cost-effective point of view.
That's an amazing stuff, isn't it? As you said, of course, national interest as well, and a thing of the future, obviously.
Yeah, definitely will be a thing of the future. 3D housing is where we're really going, and that was what started this particular conversation. The really exciting thing about this from a housing perspective is that you can build, well, any shape at all. Architects are sometimes criticised when they build these wonderful drawings, wonderful shapes, build these very nice looking houses, and then a builder comes along and says, well, how do I build that? All those curves, all those different shapes you've got in it, it makes it very hard to build. But now you can have an architect draw as many pretty pictures as you like, and the 3D printer is almost unlimited in what shapes that it can actually build. You can put curves, you can put wobbles, you can put lattice work in there. Whatever you want to build, you can actually do it.
Okay, now, time frame. So what was the time frame like, as compared to, say, building normal toilet block, in inverted commas?
Yeah, it is a very effective time frame. It didn't seem to take them long to set up. They talked about 14 hours of actual print time. Now, that started on Monday, as I said before, and it printed away. They couldn't print flat out for 24 hours or for 14 hours solid because it was a bit temperature dependent. We found that when it got a little bit colder, the mixture they had, the concrete mixture they had, didn't seem to come out quite right. So they stopped it when it got a bit cooler in the evening and obviously in the mornings. But that's a bit of learning for them for this particular company. They might change their mixture ever so slightly to handle slightly cooler temperatures. But even the rate that it came out, that changed depending on the temperature. Their normal sort of rate that would come out was about 200 millimetres per second. That's a horizontal 200 millimetres. As it got a bit cooler, they might have slowed that down to, say, 150 millimetres. As it warmed up, and as the technology improves, they believe they can get up to 300, maybe even 400 millimetres per second. So not too bad. And I assume that at some point in time, they could get to the point where they could just set it up, have the concrete mixture right or have the temperatures right, and then just go for it for a solid 14 hours and then pack up and go home.
It could be something that solves part of the housing shortage as well.
Yeah, I've actually spoken to the Housing Minister, Rose Jackson, about this as being a potential solution for our housing crisis. As with many regional areas, we've got lots of people that want to come to Dubbo. Very exciting. Everyone wants to come to Dubbo, love it, but they need somewhere to live. And last week alone, I had 38 new citizens that I got to put the final stamp on, and it's a pretty exciting ceremony to be a part of, a citizenship ceremony. But there were 38 people that became citizens, and again, they've all been in Dubbo for some number of years now, but more and more people are coming. We're just seeing so many different people. They came from 15 different countries at that citizenship ceremony. They came from India and Nigeria and the Netherlands and Pakistan and Bangladesh and Zimbabwe, a whole range of different locations. And that's exciting, but they need somewhere to live, and that's one of the great challenges at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be even more and more important, isn't it? And that's of course, one of the great ceremonies of any mayor on any local government area is about welcoming new citizens.
I get, Kerry, some really tough things I've got to do as my job. There are two incredibly pleasurable things I get to do as mayor. One is talk to Kerry Peck, and the second one is to get to make people citizens. And it's obviously a very ceremonial process. I don't actually make any decisions around that. It's all done before it gets to me. But when you've got a room full of people that are about to become Aussies, their family and friends, you've got a real buzz in the room, a real anticipation, excitement. It's really exciting. And you get to be the one that says, yes, you are finally a citizen. There's applause that erupts in the room. And you talk to people afterwards and they're just grinning, they're just happy. So it is a really exciting thing to do as a mayor. And I get excited, Kerry, because they've got a lot of countries to choose. When they decide to leave their country, a lot of countries around the world they could go to, and they choose Australia. But then, out of all the 7.6 million square kilometres in Australia, they choose our region, our area, and I get pretty excited about that as well. So it is a really exciting thing to happen. So I think overall, anyone, and they're open to the public, anyone that can go along to a ceremony, absolutely go along to it.
Thank you, sir, for your time again.
Always my pleasure, Kerry.
Have a good week, mate.
Thanks, mate.
Have a good
Bye-bye.
week. There we go then. Dubbo Mayor Matthew Dixon.
Mayoral Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.